Real Country 1430 AM and 1073 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnikins from World Dairy Expo. This is the WRDN Morning Farm Report. And thank you to our expo sponsors, including AMPI, Alcivia, Christina's Cover Crops, BioVet, Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, Compeer Financial, and Animal Wellness Center of Buffalo Valley. I'm with Chad Zuleger. He's Executive Director of Dairy Business Association. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the state issues that DBA has been working on. And Chad, thank you for joining us today. Well, a lot of different state issues. I know one of them has been that came out was the new fees from the Department of Ag for the livestock industry, which, wow, from $400 to $7,400 seems to be a bit of a jump. I'm sure that's something that DBA, along with all the livestock folks, are kind of concerned about.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about that. Thanks for asking. AdCap 10 and 12 rule is out for promulgation, accepting comment until October 15th, but really looking at animal disease and control and animal movement. Obviously something every livestock producer is familiar with, and fees that impact their businesses. To see a fee schedule increase upwards of 1,700% is really incredible and surprising. The 1,700% represents the high water mark, but we look at the fee increase across the board, 2, 3, 4, 500% increases. Working with DADCAP right now to get comments in, talk about the impacts that these fees will have, and ask questions as to why such an exorbitant increase in a program that's been in existence for a long time. We support our efforts to improve and monitor animal health and disease control. But this is really something we need some more information on, and I think we're going to get that once the comment period is done. We'll be probably back in with the department talking about the real life implications of fee increases this size, and really understand what the need is there. We understand that the program has not changed since about 2017 or 16. So certainly we recognize increased costs to monitor these issues, and we know DADCAP's been very busy, bird flu, a lot of other issues they're monitoring right now. So we always work pretty closely with DADCAP. Really surprised to see this rule come out the way it did.
Do you get the when I first saw that, I got the funny feeling, and I did talk with Secretary Romansky, well, we want public comment. Do you get the funny feeling that to get the public comment, this is what we're going to propose, because they're going to be everybody so shocked that they're definitely going to give comments?
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it. It is not the general process we've seen from DADCAP, though. Before they would propose a draft rule, oftentimes they'll bring stakeholders together to talk about the rule, what the impacts are, how agriculture utilizes the rule, and what might be most important to the community in any kind of rule change or amendment. This was a significant surprise to the industry as a whole, and I think there will be time to put in comment, but again, we already have a lot of unanswered questions, and the process really can't go forward now until October 15th, which kind of puts the industry at a disadvantage. We have been sending out member messages asking our members to contact the agency, register their concern over the rule and the fee increases. And that's really what DADCAP is going to look at as they forge their next steps.
Talking with Chad Zuleger, he's Executive Director of Dairy Business Association this morning. Along that lines as well, as there's some new things coming out from Wisconsin Department of Ag on conservation.
Yeah, like I mentioned, AdCap 52 is a rule we've been worked very close with. DBA's been a longtime supporter of programs that support conservation practices, allow farmers to work together to implement new practices, be able to collect data, understand how those practices impact both crop yields and soil health, water quality. So things like the Producer-Led Watershed Grant Program, producer-led watershed groups are forming all over the state. We've seen them really increase. Very, very bipartisan support in the state legislature. Farmers working with farmers, talking to farmers, sharing best practices is really the way that conservation is going to improve in this state. Giving farmers the room to try new things and really find out how they impact their bottom line and the environment. That includes things like the cover crop insurance premium rebate program, really incentivizes farms to employ cover crop strategies, which have great benefits to their land, but also to the water quality in our state. And then the nitrogen optimization, studying the impacts of commercial fertilizers on crop yields and soil health.
Talking with Chad Zuleger with Dairy Business Association. He's executive director. Yeah, along that line of conservation, water quality, soil quality, the nitrogen program as well.
Yes, obviously, nutrient management planning is a program we support and advocate for. Really important that farms understand the impacts of types of fertilizers on the land they're applying, and obviously a requirement for our permanent farms in the state. Oftentimes we see a finger pointed at agriculture as being the contributor to nitrate problems around our state, and we recognize that there's work to be done there. But we had a recent study come out that we really took exception to, that really didn't look at settled science, really pointed a finger at agriculture, and without science, without peer review of a report, really kind of analyzing kind of the worst case scenarios out there. So we really lean into conservation practices, very important to us, but science is really at the root of how we need to address concerns in our state.
Talking again with Chad Zuleger. He's executive director of Dairy Business Association. Chad, and we didn't chat a little bit about this beforehand before we went on air, but in western Wisconsin, pretty big concern, controversy, whatever you want to call it, with the proposed big expansion of Ridge Breeze Dairy. And there are a lot of, and this has happened before when we've had some of these larger operations wanting to expand. The people that live there in that area, they have some concerns. They do have concerns about water quality. They do have concerns about increased truck traffic. They have concerns about how will it affect smaller dairy farmers. And, how do we balance this? Because those concerns, sometimes those folks expressing those concerns feel like they're not even being listened to. And so how do we balance the ability for a dairy farm to expand, and there's a lot of instances where they're expanding because instead of it just being Brian and his three sons living together as a family unit when they're growing up, the three sons now are wanting to come back, but now they want to get into dairy farming. Well, Brian's dairy farm at 300 cows isn't going to support four separate families like it did when Brian and his three sons were one family and we were all living under the same house. I think you know how I'm explaining this. So, how big is too big?
Oh, I don't know that big farms are really the problem, and people want to point their fingers at the larger farms, but really it's an extension of our family farms, right? As you look at family farms around the state, you might have a farm with 2,000 cows. But you look at who's running that farm, you've got two brothers. And you see these examples all over the state. So we really do take exception to terms like industrial and factory farming. The specific case you cited up in western Wisconsin, we've seen a proliferation of local ordinances trying to box out farms that are looking to expand, and that's farms of all sizes. In the particular case, they've already gotten the permits from DNR to expand, and what we're doing is now going through contested case. So the permits have been approved. Groups and citizens have an opportunity to express their objections to the permit that was allotted, and so we're kind of going through that place. So it's really important to note that the permit request and the expansion request has already been vetted by the Department of Natural Resources, and we're going through that extension process, and that happens all over the state. In western Wisconsin, we've just seen a proliferation of environmental activists coming into the area, looking at our farms and trying to point a finger at farms as bad actors. It's just not the case. And we support farms of all sizes. At DBA, we recognize there's a place for farms of all sizes to work and live next to each other. Small farms really rely on larger farms to bring in the processing capacity to ensure that they've got a place to sell their milk to. So that's a really good part. Obviously, our larger farms rely on small farms, again, to fill those gaps, but also to maintain the rural nature of our communities around the state. So there really is a balance there. And we really do support and advocate for farms of all sizes, whatever the business model type might be. We want farms to thrive in Wisconsin, period.
I know that with some of those local ordinances, and some of it is environmental. But some of it is not environmental that they're wanting to have, which I know in western Wisconsin with the sand mining companies. Yeah, Pepin County was like, okay, we understand you got your permit, but your heavy truck traffic is going to destroy our county road that we can't afford to fix. And so there's some of that. So how do we balance this here? Because again, if where that farm is at on Highway Double C, if it's really not been made to handle how many additional trucks driving on it every single day, and now the road starts to fall apart, how does Pierce County pay now to keep that road passable? And now everybody else has to pay for it. Do you understand that that's where some of the, not all of, there's the environmental part of it, there's some activists coming in, but then there's just people who live in Ellsworth going, well, why are we going to have to pay now all this money to upgrade this road that's going to get trashed because it's not designed for that heavy traffic?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm really happy to talk about and promote the Agriculture Road Improvement Program. $150 million directed specifically to ag roads, not to repair those roads, but to improve them, to handle the equipment that's being driven on them. We are entering the second legislative cycle of the ARIP program. Last session, we filled the $150 million requirement, and then had an additional $250 million in application requests. So we know the need is great out there. We're very pleased the legislature agreed. The governor signed the bill implementing ARIP for another 2-year program. In fact, we're just getting ready to go into the first round of the new session where we're going to allocate $50 million to projects around the state. So I would encourage anybody that's got those concerns to really register those. And what we're looking are ag roads that carry commodities, but also those that are posted, that aren't built to specs for some of the new equipment that's being driven on them. Recognizing the concerns, oftentimes it's the farms that pay the cost of those roads. They're going to benefit from those, so farms and processors oftentimes come in and do that road work themselves for the repairs. But what we're trying to say is Wisconsin was a leader 80 years ago in paving all of our roads, and we did that for our dairy farms that were delivering milk all over the state. Really, really forward thinking in what we did. Really allowed agriculture to thrive in Wisconsin, specifically dairy. What we need is another reinvestment in that, and that's what we're seeing right now, a commitment by the legislature and the administration to address the shortcomings in our road building, not to just repair road time and time again. Enough of the chip seal, putting strains on our town and county budgets. Let's improve these roads, and with a 90-10 split with state covering 90% of those costs, it's really a first of its kind. Even the federal government is looking to do something that we did here in Wisconsin on a federal level, but recognizing those high traffic roads, first mile, last mile in particular, on the farm and into the processor, to improve those roads to handle the equipment. We continually advocate for weight limit increases. Well, this is why, because agriculture is moving forward and our roads and transportation infrastructure needs to move forward also. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Those concerns out there are valid. Towns do need to worry about their budgets and how they're repairing their roads and where their dollars are allocated. But this is an incredible opportunity for all of those rural communities, in partnership with their farms, with their processors, to improve their roads. That takes them off the maintenance schedule. That frees up dollars that can be spent elsewhere in the community. And again, in a 90-10 split with the state covering 90%, just not going to see those programs. I can't give you another example where a program exists that state's covering 90%.
That is Chad Zuleger. He's Executive Director of the Dairy Business Association. You're listening to the WRDN Morning Farm Report.